I'm Julie Saunders.
I'm Jan Wilson. Julie and I both have experience as school librarians, and we've worked together as district library leaders.
In each episode, we'll dive into our profession with interviews and meaningful content to inspire you. We're not experts,
but we're pretty close.
The ideas and opinions shared by any host, guest, or listener are their own and do not represent those of any respective school district.
Welcome to Library Exchange. This episode is sponsored by Mackin. For over 40 years, Mackin has provided pre-K through 12th grade libraries and classrooms with access to over 4 million printed and digital fiction and nonfiction titles.
The 26-time multi-award-winning digital content management system, Mackin Via, along with divisions Mackin Library, Mackin Classroom, Mackin Maker, Mackin Learning, and the brand new whole school resource management system, Mackin Vision, help to create a truly unique and robust educational resource company that schools and educators have relied on year after year.
For more information, visit mackin.com today.
Hi, Jan.
Hello, Julie. So in case you didn't notice, it's the end of September already. So everyone listening, they should already be back in school now.
We start so early in Georgia that I'm looking forward to fall break already.
I know. Well, speaking of looking forward, Julie and I want to let everyone know that we will be at the AASL conference in St. Louis, and that's October 16th through the 18th. And we have a table, not a booth. We're not rich enough for a booth, but in the exhibit area. So we want to meet you in person, so please stop by.
Yes, please stop by our table. If you're not familiar, the AASL National Conference is the only national conference focused solely on school librarians. It occurs every other year. It's great for networking and professional learning.
It is. I mean, Julie, you know what I'm about to say, right?
I know exactly what you're going to say.
So I've only been to AASL once. That would have been in 2023. Best conference ever.
I think I've heard that a few times.
And poor Julie was stuck sick in her room for the entire conference.
And so this will actually be my official first AASL, but I've heard all about it for 2 years, and I cannot wait to attend my first one.
Oh, yeah, I just had to throw that in there. That's a big story for me. Everywhere we go, Julie's like, stop saying that. But it really is. It really is.
Okay, Jan, let's get to our guest. Today, we are joined by librarian Amy Brownlee. Amy was named the 2017 Kansas School Librarian of the Year. She serves on the executive council of the Kansas Association of School Librarians.
Amy is a former language arts teacher with 25 years experience as a school librarian. If you type her name into any search engine, you will see multiple published articles and presentations. And Amy is known to take a teacher study trip in the summer whenever possible, and we can't wait to hear more about that. Welcome to Library Exchange, Amy.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
To get us started, can you tell us about your school, including number of students, staff, demographics, and any other details that might provide our listeners with some context?
Sure. I am the pre-K through 12 librarian for Sterling Public Schools, which is a very small rural district in central Kansas. I have a pre-K through 6 building and a 7 through 12 building. District-wide, we have 500 students. Now, I know lots of people have a single building with more kids than that, but we really love our small town atmosphere. It really does feel like a family. I get to know these kids. Sometimes they're in our building in preschool when they're 3 and 4 years old. And a lot of them, we follow them all the way up until they graduate. And then it's really fun to see what they do after they have graduated and flown off into the world. We have 2 teachers for each grade level. So around probably 35 to 40 is kind of an average number of kids within a grade level.
Oh,
wow.
That's fantastic. Wow.
I can't imagine the connections you get to make and build the relationships. That's awesome.
Yes. And I've been here long enough that I have children of former students.
Whoa. That's great.
When people used to say those things when I was younger, I was like, man, you're old. But it happens to all of us.
Yep, all of it.
Yep.
That's great. Amy, we've heard how successful you are in locating and writing grants, which is really what we want to dive into first. What types of grants and funding have you been able to secure?
I am always looking for funds to supplement my library budget because, as we all know, the money that we get from our districts it's not enough to meet all of the needs that we have for our learners. So I am especially always looking for grants for books, grants for technology, grants for professional development. Those are kind of three areas that I really watch for. I have applied to lots of kind of big national grants that I did not get.
Oh.
So I have really kind of found a niche looking for grants that are local within our county, within our region here in Kansas. So I would really watch the newspaper and I would look for, is there a company or an organization that's giving money to community groups? So I noticed that our local gas company, Midwest Energy, was giving out grants twice a year. And so I started applying and they are very generous. I've gotten numerous grants from them, a dozen or more. And as you complete your grant applications, you kind of learn what they like to fund and what they don't. So anytime I have asked them for books, that has been a yes. Anytime I have asked for science-based STEM equipment, hands-on equipment for my elementary kids, that has been a yes. If I asked for technology like iPads or something like that, they did not fund that. So I really try to keep track. What have I asked for? What did they say yes to? What did they say no to? I could see they love to fund books. And so I always would try to put forward a good grant application for books. And so up to twice a year, I have been able to get funding from them. We're also really lucky where we live in Kansas that we have regional library systems that provide a lot of resources. I am in the South Central Kansas library system. And they have really incredible grant opportunities. They have continuing ed grants. They have technology grants. Whenever we were ready to upgrade our library automation software, we were able to get grants from them. They are very user-friendly applications. Another tip that I would give to people is save your grant applications and then tweak them and change them to match whatever organization you are applying through. So I have a description of my library. So it's our demographics. Here's how many students. Here's how many staff. Here I have our library mission statement. These are our learning goals and how we meet that through the library. And then I show how what we're asking for matches our district mission statement and our library learning goals. And then once you have the outline of that, then you can customize it for different grant programs. Once you have that structure, it makes it easier in the future to make little changes and customize it for whatever it is that you're asking for.
Definitely, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel and your mission and vision stays the same. Did you mention before when we spoke, you highlight the fact the librarian seeing every student and that you collaborate with teachers, you try to highlight that in your application?
Absolutely. So I always like to explain the reach. How many students are going to be affected? And I talk about how I'm going to use it. So for example, when I first started in this library, the biographies were old and crusty. So we needed to get a good core of biographies. And I also I always think of the core as what are teachers going to be wanting as far as project type of books for kids to use within the curriculum. But I also want to get things that kids are interested in. So I want some things on Taylor Swift and I want some things on the actors and the musicians that are going to interest them. I put in this grant application and talk about the number of students that are going to be affected. I'm going to use some to read out loud. I'm going to talk about, I know this teacher, and this teacher will be using these books every year in their classroom for projects. So when you can really show someone this is going to get used extensively, then I think it really makes them more apt to choose your application to fund.
Do you tend to use the actual numbers of students or percentage wise? And I just wonder, being in a smaller school, is it more impactful if you say percentage? Because it would be 100% for some of your grade levels since they are so small.
That's true. And that's a great point. Sometimes our grant program is going to literally reach 100% of our students.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that's a selling point when you write that. Yeah, I see a biography back there on the cart behind you, like a who was.
Yes, absolutely.
That one does not look old and crusty.
I actually just cataloged it today. Our original copy of it got some juice spilled on it, so that the pages were red. But that's actually a series that we got a grant for a couple of years ago, and it was kind of instigated by a 6th grade teacher, and she wanted students to read a short but interesting biography on a person and then create a podcast. Talking about the life of that person. And so we were able to put in a grant application to a local organization, and they chose to fund it. I always say this is going to affect 260 kids this year and also each year in the future, because those are going to be library resources that are shared and continue to be used throughout the years.
I'm sure that the librarians listening are really appreciating all these tips and tricks on grant writing. You've been so successful with that. I can't remember if Jan asked this, and we may have to cut this out, but did you give us the estimated total for all the grants you have secured over the years?
I have. A few years ago, I added up what I had, and then I've been keeping a running total since then. My current total is $97,000.
Wow.
Oh, that is incredible. So it's true. You actually can get grants when you send those applications in.
It is. And I will tell you, out of that total, I have two what I would consider bigger grants. I got one for $20,000. That was a matching grant. That's another thing that you will see sometimes, where somebody will offer a matching grant. And so you need to find support either within your school district to match that amount or from a community fund or something like that. So we got a $20,000 matching grant. And then another year we got a $15,000 technology grant. But other than those, my grant totals have been sometimes a $25 grant, up to $3,000, but most of them are around $350, $500, $600. And if you keep at it, and if you stay consistent with those sources that you know are really like to fund schools, like I found that Midwest Energy that was very generous, and you kind of build a relationship with them, I think they feel an ownership in what you are achieving in your program, and they will be very faithful to fund you. And I always try to then take a photo of students using the items that were purchased with the grant. So the kids reading the books, the kids using the STEM equipment. And I don't just email it, I print it and I do it in a paper letter and I write a handwritten thank you note and I have the students write a handwritten. I don't have every student do it, but a handful of students write a handwritten thank you note with their artwork to send to that company so that they know that we appreciate it. And it's really built a nice relationship, and they've continued to support us over a number of years.
A little personal touch shows an investment on your part, and then they want to continue to have this happen for you with your students. Amy, another thing that we read about you, we've also spoken briefly, is you've been on some amazing trips for educators. And you were able to take those trips and then come back and provide learning enrichment for your students. So can we talk a little bit about that now?
Absolutely. I have become aware of professional development that is available for teachers. And I'm a person that loves to travel and I love to learn. So when I can combine those two things together, I am in my element. I am doing a happy dance. It is the very best thing. So What is really amazing is that there are a lot of opportunities for teachers to travel and learn that are fully funded or partially funded. So my first big travel and learn opportunity was back in 2010, and it was a Fulbright group projects abroad. It was a month in Ethiopia with the Ethiopia Reads organization.
Whoa.
So there were 12 teachers from the United States that were selected. All of your travel fees are paid. So your plane ticket, all of those kinds of things, your lodging, your food while you're traveling. So what we had to pay up front, we had to get some immunizations. So that's going to be based on where you're going. So your health kind of things, you're going to take care of that. You have to have a passport. There was a maximum that they paid on our plane ticket, and there are rules because it was a federal grant about which airlines they could use and things like that. And because I was flying out of a small regional airport, my plane ticket went a little bit over the maximums. I had to pay maybe $300 towards that. But other than that, you bring your spending money and the entire trip is planned for you, and you have the most amazing opportunities. So we got to go into Ethiopia Reads libraries. Of course, our favorite days is when we got to meet students. We got to go into schools, observe lessons. My favorite day is when we got to read with groups of students, read out loud to them. So that was a lot of fun. And then you are learning about the history, the culture, the education. You get to be a student. You get to bask in the joy of learning. So it's really amazing. It just really revitalizes you, recharges your batteries. The whole point of this trip was to learn about the culture of Ethiopia, and then you're going to bring that to back to your students through lessons. So one of my favorite ways to do that is to purchase cultural items in Ethiopia that I could bring back to kids. So there is a lesson that we learned about from one of our mentor teachers on the trip that's called entry points. So that's where you're going to bring back a cultural artifact to your students and you're going to hand it to them and they get to explore it. Now, I tell them to use their 4 senses to explore it because don't lick it. I'm with elementary students, so somebody was thinking that. Okay, explore it with your 4 senses, and then they have a list of questions that they're supposed to talk about with their small group. What do you think this is made out of? What do you think it's used for? Was this made by a person or by a machine? How long do you think it would take to make this? So I would divide a class up into 4 groups and I would have 4 items that they would explore and then we would rotate them. And then at the end, I would tell them the answers to those questions and I would show photos of them being used by people in Ethiopia. It's a really exciting hands-on way for the kids to learn about the culture. And then, of course, I brought back books. We played games that kids play in Ethiopia. We sang songs. We tried Ethiopian food. One of our teachers had a side gig as a caterer, and so she offered to make the Ethiopian recipes for us. It was just a really fun way to bring the culture of Africa to my students. We do not have a diverse population, so I have the goal of bringing the world to my students. So that was an amazing opportunity.
It's amazing. I mean, you're fully immersing the students in the culture without them having to go there. A sense of wonder, having them investigate, express what they've learned. It's amazing.
Just don't taste the objects.
Right.
No licking.
Right.
So, Amy, can you tell us some other places that you've visited?
Yes. In 2024, I applied for a National Endowment for the Humanities Summer Teacher Institute. So they offer a wide variety of institutes each summer. The one that I was selected for was called Using Graphic Novels to Teach Social Justice. It was a 2-week opportunity held at San Diego State University's Center for Comic Studies. So we went there and just were immersed in everything having to do with comics and graphic novels. There were K through 12 teachers there from all around the country. And then at the end of our 2 weeks, we spent our last 4 days attending Comic-Con International, which is a huge international comic book and pop culture convention. And then what I hadn't realized is that Comic-Con actually has sessions, especially for librarians and educators, to teach you
Oh,
about
I had no idea.
Yes, integrating comics and pop culture into your classroom.
I
So
didn't know that either.
Great.
that was great. And then this past summer, I took an international trip. It was a transatlantic study trip for teachers to Germany. And this was a 10-day trip. It was sponsored by a German organization whose goal is to build transatlantic relationships. When a lot of people from the U.S. think of Germany, we think of World War II and we think of Hitler. And so they really wanted to educate people on modern Germany. So this was, again, teachers from all over the United States. And we met together and toured the country, focusing on education and history. We got to go into 3 different schools. We got to meet German students face to face. They gave us tours of their school. We had conversations together, and it was a really excellent experience.
Wow.
And then my last one is the White House History Teacher Institute. So that was a week in Washington, D.C. And again, it was all expenses paid, your travel. You get $1,000 stipend that you apply to your travel and your evening meals. And then the White House History Teacher Institute takes care of your hotel, breakfast, and your lunch. So it was field trips to different historical places in Washington, D.C., and really great master teachers on site giving ideas about how to integrate all of these things into your lessons. And again, elementary, middle, high school teachers. I was the only librarian on this particular trip, but really big variety of teachers. And I learned so much just when we would have conversations with each other about, this is how I do this in my school. There was a teacher who works at a bilingual school that's French and English, and she teaches 3rd grade. So that was amazing to hear about. There was a teacher that works at a Department of Defense school. And so she kind of talked about her experiences. So it's amazing, not just for your learning, but also you're building this amazing network of educators across the U.S.
Wow, so rewarding. All of those trips you described and the connections you get to make with others and that are educators also. It blows my mind. It's so great.
Well, for someone who loves to travel and learn, you've hit the jackpot. I mean,
Definitely.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
So before we go, Amy, please remind us where we can contact you or follow you on social media.
I am on Instagram and Blue Sky at Amy Brownlee 93. And I also have a blog that's bibliobrownlee.weebly.com.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I loved our conversation.
We've exchanged ideas. Now it's time for the recap. It is always such a pleasure to learn more about the size and types of communities that each of our guests work with. What a wonderful experience for Amy to be able to get to know each and every child in her building and then be a part of their lives as they matriculate through school all the way to graduation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that story about that.
It's amazing. And she also mentioned off air that her youngest patrons visit the library daily. Such a dream for a school librarian.
It is. Julie, so let's review for our listeners her tips for writing grants, or as you like to always say, tips and tricks. Did you know you always say, tips? I like your tips and tricks.
Oh.
So I'm using it for you instead.
Okay.
One, she emphasized that she was not successful in receiving the big, larger national grants, that she looks for local grants in her county, in her region. And then when she's completing the application, we have to use our math skills, librarians, but she recommends use the percentage of students or the number of students it will impact and emphasize which one has the greater number.
Yes, absolutely. She really painted a picture for us that anyone can secure a variety of grants with a variety of award thresholds. Yeah. After doing it for so many years, she tracks the organizations she receives awards from for specific items. And that's so helpful because each year she can tweak her applications to customize for future grants. She explains that much of the grant application asks similar things and that those similar things often involve student reach, enrollment, needs, etc.
Right. You know, you should only maybe have to change some of your numbers and what you plan to use the funds for. So that was great. It reminded me of when I worked in a high school library. I gave the same advice to my students that we want everyone to leave with as well, which is grants are out there. You just have to go and find them, and maybe start with your state library association.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, go.
Well, I was just going to say, I know this is in addition to the college application process that you were mentioning, but I especially love how she makes the businesses who award the grants feel that they have impacted the students directly by taking pictures and printing the pictures and then handwriting the thank you notes from her and her students. I can just imagine in those local businesses, they have a bulletin board probably displaying all those thank you notes.
Yeah.
And that really helps them share in the joy of student impact instead of the grant just being a financial transaction.
Right. Show them that you appreciate it. Before we get off the topic of the grants, I do want to let everyone know, in case you haven't looked at some of these, EBSCO and DEMCO on their website both have a list of grants for libraries. And there's a list specifically to support school libraries on EBSCO. If you just use the keywords Connect EBSCO Grants. And also DEMCO, they have a free grants database that you can search on their website by state. And a lot of these are not limited to books or software. You can include materials for your grant ask. And Julie, dynamic shelving is such a big topic right now. And we want to offer our students author visits, or maybe you need soft seating or other furniture, or maybe just a rug for your read alouds. But I just went to the website and searched Georgia, and there was $257 million available.
Wow. Great resources. I guess I could say great tips and tricks, Jan.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about her traveling, Julie.
Wow, right? The travel grants just really sounded incredible to be able to immerse yourself in learning about libraries and schools in other countries, and then to bring back the artifacts to provide learning experiences for your students. That just sounds really amazing.
Yeah, she talked about how they can understand how others live or lived, depending on what the artifact was. But this really sparks that wonder stage for students when they're holding something, or any of us. It really kind of makes us ask more questions like, what is this? Where did it come from?
Right.
How is it used? But they have to use their 4 senses, not their 5 senses.
Well, I really hope that this episode inspires others to put some effort into writing grants. You know, the students at Amy's school are just so lucky to have her. She models that joy of lifelong learning and really has shown her commitment to seeking out the best resources for her school library and for her students.
Yeah, she had a lot to offer. Don't forget, you guys, you can follow Amy Brownlee on Instagram and Blue Sky at Amy Brownlee 93. And she also has a great blog, and that can be found at bibliobrownlee.weebly.com. We look forward to you tuning in to our next episode.
Make sure to visit our website at www.libraryexchangepodcast.com.
You'll find episode notes and links. You can even submit your questions or inspiring stories that may be featured on the podcast.
If you're looking for some swag for your library or book-loving friends, visit libraryexchange.etsy.com.
That's a lot of URLs, so I'm glad you had to say all of that, Julie.
Thanks for joining us. We can't wait to have you back for our next episode of Library Exchange.